Testing. Thank you, Senators. I do appreciate your attention. I know it's late in the hours, but you honor me with just sticking with me just for a few minutes. I had a whole laundry list of things I wanted to talk about because, namely, you had 17 bills that I really couldn't get behind. A lot of the message has already been delivered, so I'm going to skip right to the point. The one bill that I wanted to bring to your attention was the assault weapon ban and the 10-round limitation. I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Texas, there was an individual that also carried an AR-15 and actually stopped a guy that had just committed an atrocity at a church where I believe up to 26 people were murdered. He also had an AR-15. So did the folks down in Parkland. The gentleman down in Parkland had an AR-15. So when you have somebody or the same weapon being used by two different people and two different outcomes, I'm trying to figure out, and I've been listening to testimony all night, where's the common sense in going after a weapon as a tool or an instrument when clearly it's the wielder's intention that drives the outcome. It's not the weapon. The weapon is just a tool. So I don't really understand that. And as much as I've tried to really get to the bottom of that, I've listened to a lot of folks with competing ideas, and I still am not able to bridge that gap. I think the intention for this bill might have started out as well intended, but I think it's misinformed at best. Furthermore, I'm concerned about this bill effectively making it illegal to 3/4 of the type of firearms that are commercially available. And how would that pass the constitutional test? If 3/4 of the firearms could be constituted as being banned, whether it's not just a firearm, not just an assault rifle, so-called assault rifle, it's a pistol and shotguns with certain characteristics. We heard from Frank earlier today at the beginning of the session. He said about 3/4 of the weapons out there would fit under this description. And I can tell you personally, all of my weapons would be considered illegal under this definition of what an assault weapon would be. So if we are here saying that we don't want to trample on the Second Amendment rights, but we're willing to ban over 3/4 of the commercially available weapons out there, I don't see how you can say that in the straight face. That clearly is a mutually exclusive goal, the way this bill has been defined in terms of what's actually being excluded. There was a question asked, and I believe there were statements made earlier about why is the AR-15 a commonly used weapon in mass shootings? And I think somebody tried to say, well, because they're going to conduct mass shootings, it's a weapon of choice. I want to cite to you a particular statistics, and again, take it for what it's worth. It's from the National Shooting Sports Foundation that stated that in 2016, 61% of rifles that were sold that year were the AR-15. So is it the fact that the AR-15 is the weapon of choice, or is it the fact that there are that many AR-15s and it's a weapon of many choices for both hunting, self-defense, and it's ubiquitous? It's something that's available everywhere. So to sit there and blame and say the AR-15 is the thing in common, I think is a leap too far, especially when you look at the fact that of over 61% of the rifles being sold in 1 year is this particular weapon. I want to switch the attention to the idea that we should limit the magazine size to 10 rounds. And I don't know where 10 rounds came from. Maybe that was just an arbitrary number we pulled out of our butt, but it certainly is out there. And I want to bring to your attention that, and I don't know if this is common knowledge, but there was a senator down in Florida that said that the gentleman that was involved in Parkland was using 10-round magazines. So clearly, in that case, a 10-round magazine really wouldn't have a zero or net zero effect on that outcome. So I understand the idea that we want to limit the effect or the impact of a potential mass shooting. I believe that's the premise of this law, is that if somehow you had to switch your magazine, that split second is going to give somebody the ability to intercede. It's going to allow them to, that pause, because they're all ducked under some table or anything, to throw a book at them, tackle them, or otherwise return fire if that's the situation. But anybody that's actually fired a weapon and has switched magazines knows that it's about 2 seconds, maybe 3. And yeah, maybe you can get in there, but there's been zero evidence that has been provided that showed that a mass shooting was stopped when somebody was changing their magazines by somebody projecting some kind of force on them during that split second. So we have a magazine limitation bill that's being presented as a solution, but yet there's no evidence to suggest that solution would have any efficacy whatsoever. Let me tell you a real life situation on how that same ban or that same restriction could have an equally, for me, negative effect, is that when I'm in a defensive situation, and I think this was asked last year by, I believe, one of the senators, I forget the name, how many rounds is necessary? How many rounds is necessary to defend yourself? To me, there's only one answer to that: all of them. So limiting the magazine size is only going to have me have to switch my magazine out in the middle of a defensive situation. So it puts my life at risk. And at this time, you've got somebody that's actually engaged where I feel my life is actually threatened. So I understand we want to limit the impact of mass casualties, but this is a misguided bill if there ever was one. And I vehemently oppose both that and the assault weapon ban as a violation of my ability to defend myself and my family. I want to stop talking about bills and just address the committee, if I can, directly, and not really in the context of a particular bill. But somebody had made this statement that we wanted a bipartisan approach. We wanted to balance the need to have safety with not wanting to trample on rights. I believe that's the common theme I heard from many of you senators tonight, is that we want to find that balance. I find that disingenuous at best, and here's why. When I enter in a negotiation with somebody, or I want to enter in a negotiation or look for real solutions, I surely don't start out with 17 ways to make them a criminal. And I feel that your first hand or your first play at it is, let's put a bunch of things that will criminalize activity that I do as a law-abiding citizen, and you expect me to believe your intentions are to find a nonpartisan answer to this horrible problem. I can't see that. I cannot have that leap of faith. So if you really want a solution or set of solutions that get to the core of the issue, I think the best approach is not start out with 17 ways to make me a criminal, and get yourselves out of whatever echo chamber there might be and talk about real solutions. Not the feel-good solutions you propose just because Connecticut did it. Sweet Jesus. I mean, just because somebody else does it. How many times we've told our kids, don't do something just because somebody else does. But yet we have no evidence that shows any direct efficacy, but we're willing to promote those same policies here in Rhode Island. I don't understand that. So if you really want to look at solutions, then really bring people in that can answer those problems. The last thing I'll mention here is I do have a child. He doesn't like to be called a child anymore. He's a junior in high school. We live in Lincoln, so he attends Lincoln High School. I am concerned as a parent, like everybody else that's commented here, about what school safety means to them. I mean, there's a lot of hysteria in the media. There's a lot of things that are just being blown out of proportion, but there's a real issue here. I honestly think that if you wanted to solve that problem, solve the problem. Don't go roundabout looking at how you can pretend you're going to take criminals or weapons from criminals that aren't going to be turning them in, and find ways to make folks like myself or law-abiding citizens criminals ourselves, and really solve the problem by going after the school. If you want to make sure that school is secure, it's not like this is a rocket science, folks. The TSA has been doing it to airports for a long time now. Every bank that you go to has secured their location. We know the blueprints to make our schools safe. It involves police officers. It involves bulletproof glass. It involves the layers of protection that the one woman was mentioning. There are ways to do this that does not involve infringing on Second Amendment rights. And the question came up, well, how do you pay for all that? You know, that's a lot of money. I get it. It's a sensitive topic. I can assure you, if you propose a bond, or the representative propose a bond, or some way at the local level to pay for those improvements to our schools, you would have resounding support amongst all parents and maybe all members of that community. I don't think I would ever hear myself saying I want to be taxed more. Clearly, I don't think it's a new one for me. But in this case, if that's what it takes, so that we focus on the real issue and get beyond this partisan discussion about banning guns as an answer to everything, then that's what I'm willing to do. And I hope you are too.